In our tightly interconnected modern world, a localized dispute can ripple outward with terrifying speed, pushing us toward the very real threat of nuclear escalation and humanitarian catastrophe. We have beautiful songs wishing for peace, and global movements built on the ideal of harmony. But poetry and good intentions cannot physically disarm a warhead, nor will they stop a dictator, which leaves us with a strange paradox. We live in an era capable of splitting the atom and instantly communicating across the globe, yet we are still driven to the brink of mutual destruction by basic interpersonal conflicts. Surviving this bottleneck requires more than political ideology. It demands a precise scientific understanding of the actual mechanisms driving human behavior. The pride, jealousy, and arrogance that fuel global conflict are specific biological mechanisms, each serving a distinct evolutionary requirement. In prehistoric times, early humans faced brutal environments where hesitation meant death. These specific emotions evolved as high-speed survival software, forcing them to react to fatal threats with split-second instinct. The problem is that our brains are still running this ancient survival software today. We live in a modern, structured society where those extreme life-or-death reactions are rarely needed. When this prehistoric code misfires in a boardroom or across a border, it manufactures conflict where none needs to exist, destabilizing our economic, energy, and food systems. Recognizing and updating this biological time capsule is an immediate necessity to prevent humanity from engineering its own collapse. For 15 years, Dr. Parag Jasani has pursued a reliable way to map these mechanisms. He stepped away from the contradictory guesswork of ancient philosophies to focus entirely on biology. His research is built on a simple premise. If the physical body evolved through the brutal filter of natural selection, the mind must inherently be a product of that exact same evolutionary process. This approach strips away subjective beliefs, rooting human psychology in the rigorous logic of a timeline backed by hundreds of millions of years of physical fossil evidence. The result of this research is a framework called the DOS model, which stands for the Dichotomized Operating System. While traditional neuroscience excels at finding isolated correlations in brain activity, the DOS model connects those data points into a single, unified system of cause and effect. By treating the mind entirely as a product of biological evolution, we have an objective, testable blueprint for why humans think and feel the way they do. The model treats the hard problem of consciousness as a technical question of information processing, using the logic of natural selection to define how a biological machine generates subjective experience. It demonstrates that consciousness is entirely a manufactured product of the brain's processing centers, stripping away the need for mystical or supernatural explanations. Inside this system, the agent we call the self, our deep sense of I, me, and myself, is an actual permanent functional component of our neuroanatomy. This component operates mechanistically. It processes incoming data, forms clear intentions, and executes genuine free will decisions. Because the mechanics of this operating system were unknown, they eluded some of history's greatest minds who studied human behavior relying only on outside observation. Once we understand the exact mechanics of our own operating system, we gain the ability to consciously override our automated, destructive instincts. Mapping the human mind is only half the process. A user manual is entirely useless if it just sits on a shelf. This is the driving force behind the Heal the World project, an initiative designed to take this exact mechanistic understanding and make it accessible to every single person on Earth. The execution strategy relies on a globally scalable model of assisted learning, supported by a worldwide network of trained human facilitators. This human-centric approach guarantees that no one is excluded simply because they lack digital access or technological literacy. The core science is highly accessible. Stripped of confusing jargon and rooted in basic evolutionary logic, the underlying mechanisms can be understood by an 8-year-old. This takes a rigorous scientific breakthrough and packages it as a practical grassroots movement for global human well-being. When an individual understands just one underlying mechanism, like the strict biological root of jealousy or pride, it immediately reshapes how they interact with their family and community, stripping out unnecessary negativity. The project aims to scale this understanding globally to reshape human interaction. By addressing the prehistoric behavioral roots of tribalism at the individual level, the goal is to systematically remove the primary drivers of international conflict and terrorism. It puts scientific weight behind the ancient philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the realization that despite the artificial borders we draw, the world truly functions as one interconnected family. By consciously reprogramming the outdated evolutionary software that has steered us into conflict, we can actively redesign human life for harmony. To engage with the science and take the first step towards global optimization, look into Mind, a user manual, and the Heal the World project. We finally have the tools to change our trajectory.